Good morning, everyone. Excellent. My name is Kris. I'm here from Toronto, as mentioned a few minutes ago. I'm going to talk to you briefly about some of the work we've been doing with AI, how we've managed to partner with folks here at proMX, as well as the folks at Microsoft, how we've actually been able to now. A little bit. Perfect. Thank you. If you can't hear me, just tell me. Anything else, I'm more than happy to adjust as we need to. Like I said, so I've come here to talk to you briefly about how we've managed to partner with proMX, with Microsoft, and how we've managed to now use the AI that is being offered to us, the advantages that the team has been giving us, how we're driving business value with it at this point, how we've actually started to implement this within our organization, and how that is actually turning into true business value for us, and how we've made or helped the teams adopt and change their ways of working at this point. This is still me, so we don't need to look at me anymore unless everybody can't see me standing up here on the stage. Just a brief rundown of some of the things we'll talk about. So basically how we've approached AI within our environment, the steps we've taken, how we're looking at change management, how do we ensure that we develop something that the team is actually going to use, what it looks like to partner with the folks here at proMX and Microsoft and partners that exist throughout the world. How we actually decide which areas of our business we're going to tackle. Obviously within project operations, there's a million different things that we can look at. So how do we make sure that we go after the things that make the most sense, make our business users' lives easier, and have the most impact within our organization? And then what are some of the lessons learned and best practices that we've figured out as we go through this and continue that journey? So like I said, with Bond, just a quick introduction to ourselves. We are a customer intelligence agency. We do work within our world, within our platforms, and drive insights for our clients. How do they get the most out of their customers? How do we ensure that they've got the information they need to drive the business value for the rest of their organizations? So we work within our own platforms. We deliver that particular context, and we drive that value for the rest of the organizations that we service. So how do we approach AI? I mean, there's a million different questions you can ask with this, a million different answers you can answer with this. Every organization has their own uniqueness and how they actually drive this value. So what are we doing here? Right. So we've looked at, sorry, I'm going to step out of the light so I can see on this side. I don't know about you, but standing in front of the light makes it a little bit harder to actually see what's going on there. So how do we approach AI? How are we going to make sure that this is successful as we go through and actually bring this to life within our organization? So the first thing we look at is experimentation. Right? What can AI do? And there's more questions and answers to that than we could possibly imagine. So how do we make sure that when we're doing it, that we're taking the approach that's going to actually get us to the result that we're looking at? So we make sure that we first start in a sandbox, as most places will, make sure that we're testing and playing with every possible scenario. What can we think of next as a business leader within the organization? What do I think my users want? What are they going to get value out of, and how do I drive that information going forward? And let's play. It's a playground. Microsoft gives us a playground. proMX helps us build that playground. Let's see what we can do, and we'll take chances. We'll figure it out. We'll take an approach. Where it works, where it doesn't work, we'll go ahead and we'll start playing with that and continue to move forward as we do it with everything else. As we sit here, we have to think about not only what can we do, but what's the impact? How do we make sure that this is being governed properly, that this is being secured, and that we're not just going to sit and release information that people can take advantage of, right? It's like any user environment. Users will play with what they can. They will find ways around the system. How do we ensure that it's been secured, that it's doing what it's supposed to do, and that they're not going to then find other ways to use that, because it's very, very powerful tooling. How do we make sure that they're staying within the confines of the space that we're presenting to them? Now, when we start to look at this as an operational team, how we're developing it, one of the things is always, what do we think is best for the users? What we do on our side is make sure that we collaborate with the organization, not just come up with ideas. We can come up with every idea you can imagine. This is what my business team needs. But if I'm not meeting with that team and I'm not discussing my possible scenarios and their pain points, am I going to get the value out of this? Really, it always comes back down to what is going to impact this organization. How do we ensure that they're getting the value out of it that we see as we develop these tools? And then we go through a pilot, right? Everybody goes through pilots. We actually bring our change champions from the different business units in the organization into our sandbox. Not only are we going to develop the tool, but we're going to have them interact with it along that path. Make sure that what we see as customer value is truly driving the impact that we want, that they're able to come in, use the tool, and you'll see later here as we go through a demo where that changes, because their feedback is critical to making sure that not only are our ideas useful, but they actually drive impact that changes the way people interact with the system. So how do we do that, right? Making sure that we have structure to these changes. We come in with ideas, we start to develop on that, make sure that we've got information that we think is usable by the system. We go back, we discuss with these people. We actually created, as part of our implementation, a super user or change champion organization that was supposed to last for 1 month. It has now lasted for 2 years. Like many things, they don't always go exactly as planned, but what we found is as we bring people into that part of the organization, they continue to provide feedback, they continue to come with new ideas. It's no longer just about support, but now it's within our organization. It's a way for them to provide more information of what's working, what's not working, give us additional ideas on things that we can now consider, and where can we start to make changes that are going to make this organization and their work easier. Once we've gone through and we've discovered some of those things and where we want to start to take approaches to changing this work, we want to make sure that we're validating the use cases, right? What do we know? What do we think they're expecting? And what's the outcome we're actually trying to drive? What is this change really going to do for the organization? Once we've developed it, we've gone through the use cases, we've had people feedback, making sure that we are really ready to move forward with this. How do we train people on this information? How do we make sure that they're able to consume it? How are they going to be able to use it? Is it going to work? Because training, I'm sure in most organizations is the same. People will get one tool, everybody interacts with it different, right? Our finance team is not going to interact with this the same way our operations team might. Definitely not the same way our project management team will. How do we make sure that they're all able to use this effectively and it provides value to them on a daily basis? Once we've developed that, we're ready to move forward. We've provided the training, we've got all the information. As I mentioned a minute ago, we keep what we call a super user group or change champions that is often referred to as. Like I said, we kept ours for 1 month. That's lasted for 24 now. So we keep that going. We make sure that communication stays there and that feedback is continuous, so we can not only ensure that it works, but that we're also making sure that it's being maintained, it's being developed further, and we continue to improve the process as that life cycle continues. Now, I'm sure many organizations are just like us. We think we can do it ourselves, and many things we can, but one of the things that we found is partnership, making sure we get the right people in the room, not just the business experts, the technical experts, and the people who understand how this all comes together, making sure that we bring everyone in, has a voice, and helps us make sure that we're driving the value, not just trying to figure this out. Right. So like I said, we've mentioned working with the Microsoft team. We've had plenty of challenges and situations and feedback with them, and we've brought in folks like the proMX, who's really helped us drive a lot of that value, things that we don't know, right? We keep bringing these tools in, and folks like Rob just mentioned, they keep developing this new and new every day. It's a lot to bring on, and most organizations are focused on their daily business. How do we make sure that we're doing this, we're doing it quickly, and we're doing it effectively? We want to make sure that the team is getting something out of this, not just our ideas. So we bring in folks like proMX, who really understand the tooling behind it, making sure that they help us see the vision, build the vision, and then deliver the vision. So, just like we do with our own internal team, we sit, provide the information we've got, the feedback that we get from our user environment, then we come back to Microsoft, we come back to proMX. How do we make sure that our business knowledge meets your technical knowledge and delivers on a system that is now going to actually effectively change the way that we operate within our organization? Taking this type of approach makes sure that it's not just a tool that we develop, we deliver, sits in the environment, and as some of the stats we were showing a few minutes ago, doesn't get used. Right? The last thing we want is to spend all of this time, effort, and energy making sure that we put something out that the user environment then no longer says, this is valuable, it's not delivering what I need, I'll continue doing what I'm doing, because at that point we've just used all of our effort, we've delivered a great quality product that isn't driving the business value. So we have to make sure that it's working within the confines of what we expect. So how do we make sure that works, right? Technical foundations, change management. Change management is always the hardest part. I think, my personal opinion, change is not always easy within the user space. So we want to make sure that we're handling this and that it's going to be effective as we move forward. So how do we do that? Right? First things first, we have to make sure our data is robust. Right? If things aren't laid out well, developing AI on top of it or developing agents on top of it, it's not going to provide you value. It's too difficult. The schemas aren't right. The information is hard to manipulate. How do you then move this back and forth? It just doesn't work. So we have to make sure that there's a good structure in place, that the information is usable, and then we can start to develop on top of that. Now, once we've got the structure in place, this is the hardest part in my experience doing this for close to 30 years now. Data readiness. Is the data ready? Just because you have good structure doesn't mean that users have used this in a way that's going to make sense, or that the data sitting behind it is clean, right? We have some of these experiences. We were just talking about this morning. We have a lot of data in our environment. Some of it works very well. If it's not clean, then when we start to layer automation, AI on top of it, it only can use what it has available to it. If that data doesn't work, your agent's going to fall down, and users are going to get more frustrated with what you've delivered. It doesn't then add value. It actually causes more confusion, more frustration, and more willingness to walk away from it. So how do we make sure we've got everything done? Once we've cleaned up our data, we've cleaned up our schemas, everything is working, we again start to engage our change champions within the organization, making sure that they're clear on what it is, not just that we've talked about, what we're now going to target, what are we going to deliver, and how is this going to impact your daily use, because that's going to be an important factor in how we go about delivering that within the organization. Now, once we've got that all in place, we want to make sure that this is not just something we're going to drop on a desk. It has to be scalable. How do we make sure that this isn't just a deliver and move forward? Make sure that this is going to be tested, validated, usable, and we can grow this beyond just what we're looking at this particular moment, because these systems don't just implement and walk away. They're going to continue to grow, and we've got to make sure that this design is ready to grow with it. So how do we make sure we're effective in delivering these changes to our organization? This is where a lot of places tend to fall down. We've all fallen down here. I've fallen down here more times than I want to admit. But we want to make sure that the change is going to be effective, it is going to be delivered, and that we're going to do this in a fashion that it hits the organization, they use it, and it becomes part of just our everyday life. First things first, make sure we've got clear ownership. Who does this actually belong to? Who's going to be responsible for this? At Bond, it's typically me as the product owner. So I need to make sure that when I'm saying I'm going to deliver, it is owned by me. I take that, I own it from start to finish. And by the time that we get this through, I can put my name on it proudly and say, yes, this is something we've delivered to this organization, and it's now going to be a part of our everyday life as we move forward. Right? So as I mentioned earlier, once we've got the ownership of that, we've got people clearly defined, and we've gone through our different parts of our organization, how are we going to go about tailoring these training sessions? Right? As I mentioned, finance will use these things one way, operations will, project management will, different parts of the organization, they're all going to do it differently. So we will go out, we will truly understand the way that the teams are going to use it, which is why we use our change champions. What are you actually doing with this tool? How do we make sure that when we give this to the rest of the organization, they truly understand what its capabilities are and what this is going to do for them in their everyday lives? We then start to put this information out. We start to go beyond just the change champions. We will start to communicate out to the organization, we're doing this, and in fact, in the sample I'm going to go through in a few minutes, I'll give you a clear understanding of, thank you. You can yell at me. You can yell at me. It's okay. If you guys can't hear me, just tell me you can't hear me, and I will make sure. There we go. Excellent. All right, we figured it out. This is the advantage of having good partners. They will tell you when nobody hears what you're saying. Yeah. So like I said, when it comes down to the communication part of this, excellent. Thank you. We are now in a phase of make sure that gets out there. So we start with not just saying we're going to do things, but we put out that training documentation. We put out clear documents to say, this is something we're going through, this is something we're about to introduce, get people excited about it, make sure that they know that this is coming, and this is the impact it's going to have on them, and what that path looks like, not just from idea, but all the way through, this is when it will be available to you, so that they get ready, and they're excited for that change coming. In fact, through the use case that we'll talk about here in a minute, I'll just give you a bit of a background of how that worked. We did the development. One of the change champions came to me because it's impactful to the way we actually manage changes within our organization. The first question I got after the use case testing in that case was, when is this going? Is it in my environment? My team is ready for this. Can I have it well in advance of us actually being ready to deploy this to the production environment, because we were still going through the communication phase of this. So it does really effectively manage the user base so that they understand what this change is going to do. So like I mentioned, we'll go through an actual use case. This is one that we've just gone through here with the help of the Microsoft and proMX teams. Not sure that we could have delivered it in the time frame we did. In fact, I'm certain we could not have delivered in the time frame we did. We probably could have done this 6 months later, but by making sure we partner with the correct people, we were actually able to get through this in a significantly shorter time frame. So what is a project cost adjustment, or PCA as we refer to it within our organization? What is this really going to do? What is it going to help us with? Right, so the PCA agent itself is really going to be, providing insights within our organization, automating a lot of the process, and getting rid of the manual work. Right, the manual work that a lot of teams go through. Anybody who's worked in project operations knows there's a lot of clicks, there's a lot of places you have to navigate through the system. It's very prohibitive to some of the users. They find it very clunky. They just don't want to do it. It's hard. So how do we make sure that it's no longer going to be hard? Right? This was not our first idea. In fact, this was probably 6 months down my roadmap at this point. But as we communicate with that user base that we should have stopped communicating with 2 years ago, this was the biggest one. This is the one that causes me problems. I spent all of my time. In fact, when I looked at it, I've been told that my estimates were wrong, that I'm undercutting my user base. They tend to spend more time in this area than I expected, but I'm still not going to quote numbers that high. It just doesn't make sense. So we want to make sure that this is going to be impactful. This is the one, through our evaluation, when we had 15, 20 different tools there, this is the one that somehow managed to hit the top of the list, because our users told us this was the most challenging part of their day-to-day operations. So what is it really going to do for us? It's going to change the way we operate. People are doing manual work. They're spending 15, 20, 25 minutes trying to make all of these changes go through day by day. It's not productive. It's not productive work, right? It takes a lot of time. We have to make a lot of changes. And the net result is I've spent half my day making change rather than managing my business and managing my clients. How do we take that out of our environment? So you'll see here as we go through the actual use case in a second, right? The collaboration, it is critical to the way we do this. We sat down with the proMX team a few months back, I don't remember exactly when we started on this, said, you know what, this is the challenge we're trying to overcome. What do you guys think? How do you make this work? And we developed something. We designed it with the help of the proMX team. We said, you know what, this is going to effectively change the way that this organization operates. We're going to reduce all of this manual effort. The numbers were actually larger than I expected, but we removed it. Using the rest of the team, as we bring finance into that equation, as we bring business operations into that equation, they said, you know what, you guys have developed something, it seems to work, but how do we know it works? Because it just does the job it's supposed to. Okay, we took that feedback back. We changed things around a little bit. We redesigned a little bit where it didn't, as a business owner, it didn't make sense to me, but as business users, it made sense to them. So we adopted. Let's change it. It might be a little bit more in the interface than you would expect, but from a user perspective, from a change perspective, it made it that much more impactful to our organization, to a point of, as I mentioned, they wanted it before we were ready. They saw it, they knew what it was going to do. Can we have it today? So what's that life cycle look like, right? We spent, I think, a couple hours. I don't think we even spent that much. It was clearly understood what the change required was. We spent a little bit of time. Let's go through what this really means. What ideas do we have? How is this going to work? What can we possibly do? And we went through a number of different ideas to say, you know what, this is how we can effectively make change in this organization and how we can make this work. So let's design it. And we did, and we spent a few days, I think, going back and forth through this. Some of the folks in this room actually helped with it. And thank you, Sebastian. I know you weren't expecting to get called out, but the team has made it very easy to design this, right? They sat with us, went through our ideas, went through what we proposed as changes, told us, you know, this is the part you're not thinking about, and this is how we can make this more effective, more seamless, and integrate within the environment. So we started building. Let's put it together, let's make it work. And we developed that in partnership with proMX in less than a day, I think. It wasn't very long. We spent very little time. We designed it, we tested it, this works. It does exactly what I wanted to do. It's going to change the way my team operates. Let's get them engaged. And we did. And they said, it's great. I don't know if it works. How do we make sure they know? So we started to play with it. We started testing different scenarios, different use cases. How are they going to interact with this? How do they speak to it, right? It's a lot of natural language, a lot of custom language that exists within our organization, as I'm sure most of you have within yours. How do we make sure it's not only understands common information across the industry, but information that's unique to our organization? So we spent a bunch of time going back and forth, test, rebuild, test, rebuild, test, rebuild, till we got it right. Didn't take as long as we would expect, but it did actually deliver exactly what we thought it would. So how do we get it ready? We go through user testing, we continue to run that cycle over and over, and we get them ready for the change, right? How do we make sure that this is going to get delivered, it's going to get adopted, and it's going to be not just another agent that sits out there without use cases and without any use on a daily basis. So what did this look like? We had what we do every month, as I'm sure many others do. We go through financial reconciliations every month. We make changes within our project. I don't know about you guys, we run 150 to 200 changes a month through our system as we run our projects. It can be a cumbersome exercise. Nobody wants to do it, let's be real. Change is fun sometimes, change is usually a challenge. So they want to make sure that it's getting the information out, that they're not spending all of these times running change management through their project because they just don't want to. So let's figure out how we do that. What did we discover as we went through this? As I mentioned, this was not on my list. It was just far enough down that I probably wouldn't get to it till next year. But as we talked to our users, they kept telling us, this is something we do a lot. It's very manual, it's very tedious. How do we make this easier? If we're going to target something, please come after this process. It's just too much work. Right? As I say, you do a couple hundred of these a month. You spend 10, 15, 20 minutes doing it. You've now wasted a lot of your time through either your finance team or your project management team, spending all of the effort doing this, not servicing the clients, which is where the true value of their work comes from. The problem we've also looked at is it's manual. It's prone to mistakes. As you put information into your system, especially when you talk about finances, you move that decimal place 1 point, and all of a sudden your number is very off. Finance is not going to be very happy with you. Let's make sure that manual data error is never going to be a problem again. So what did it look like? This is our system. This is actually out of my sandbox environment. It is live with all of our customizations, so it may not look like your environment does because we have changed the way our interface looks just a little bit, but this is an existing system. At the bottom of this, you'll see the contract lines. These are what the team actually works with. At the top of this is what we call our summary information. This is the actual budget for this project. Not sure which project it is. Oh, this is one of our Ford projects. This is what goes to our ERP. That's what the team manages on a day-to-day basis. How do I make sure that my budget across each of my teams is actually accurate? What you'll see on that, in that is the teams that are working on it, depending on the work for that project. They all have their own individual budgets. It's not just a project, but it's a team. How is that team operating? How do we make sure that that particular part of the organization for this work is effective? It's doing what it's supposed to do. More important, it's making money. So they come in. This will be the same on the other one. When I go through the after effect of this, this is where the team starts. Right? We can navigate to it. It's 5, 6, 7 clicks to get into this particular point, but this is where we've told people when they make changes, this is where they're gonna start. From there, on one of the tabs at the top, you'll see PCAs. This is our actual project cost adjustment page. This, for the most important record for them, or the first record at least, they have to go in, create themselves a new record, make sure that this is available, create yourself a change record before you can do anything else. If you don't have this change record, you'll have nothing to link the rest of the downstream system with. The automation and the configuration we have won't allow you to proceed any further. So go ahead, start your new record. Now we've got a bunch of data that they have to fill in. Some of it we'll preset for them. We'll add assign IDs to it. They'll go in here. They'll look for the mandatory fields, fill that out. What kind of change am I trying to make? Right? Is this going to be related to a cost overrun? Is this going to be related to a scope change? What is it I need to do? Where am I going to put this? Who's working on it? When do I need to have this done? What's the detail of this change? It's a lot of, shouldn't say a lot, it's a number of clicks, a lot of making sure I've got the right information, and then making sure that I've provided that, because that's going to be important to the next step when they start to go in back to their record, return to the contract, and start to add the contract lines or changes that they're going to have to now implement within the confines of this particular change, one of the hundreds that they're going to do this month. Once the lines are complete, sorry, go back for 1 second, just to make sure that, yeah, adding the contract lines, attaching those. You can see on the top of the record here the change that we just created, making sure that that's linked. If that link doesn't exist in our environment, the rest of these fields are actually locked. They cannot proceed, so they'll be stuck at that point. So making sure they've got that record there, and then doing this over and over and over again until the details of that change are complete. We're not just moving a number of hours or costs from one, but making sure we're moving it from 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on how many it is that they need to do on this particular project, looking at what happens as part of their month-end financials every month, and making sure that any other changes related to scope have been applied. Once the lines are complete, back to the change record. Now I'm ready. They're looking at the impact of their financials. See, it's not quite big enough on the screen. Apologies, my screenshot is a little bit small to read, but what you can see here on the left-hand side is now the impact of that change. What is this actually doing? How has my budget been changed as a result of this? Do those numbers make sense? My revenue has been revised, my cost has been revised, the impact to my project is now fully relevant and fully visible on the screen, and the change lines are represented at the bottom so they know that they've completed everything. Are we content? Yes? Okay, go ahead. There's an approval switch at the top. Go flip that approval switch, save that record, and go ahead and send it off to the team for approval so we can now apply this change to make our budget updates that we need to make. Now, after the agent, what does this really do? What's going to be the same? What's going to be different? How has this process changed? And what's really improved? So as I said, the team goes in, same record, same place. I'm going to start. The only difference is now instead of flipping over, they're making sure they've got Copilot open on the top. Right? We're not asking them to call the agent. We're not asking them to put in any other steps, any other information, other than the analysis that they did. So again, it's hard to read on the screen, but basically what we're telling them is just tell it what you want it to do, right? Go in, I need to add revenue to this, I need to add cost to that, I need to remove, I need to change. These are the things, plain English, what change am I trying to make at this point? The agent then responds back with confirmation. You want to make a change here, right? Yes? Okay. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start processing exactly what you just told us. Once the agent has confirmed that, yes, you're ready to proceed, this is the project I'm working on, well, here's the detail. This is what we're now going to apply for you. Sorry, I need to move stuff out of my way. I'm losing my notes. We all need to make updates. So at this point, it's come back and said, here's exactly what I'm going to change for you now. Right? Are you content? Yes? Go ahead. We'll now accept that. And for us, this was the stopping point. Right? This is a change. It's approved. Our initial design said, we're finished. Go ahead, create the lines, do the work. This is where the collaboration with our user base said, you're not finished. How do I know this has actually done what I expect it to do? The contract looks the same. I don't know about you guys. In our contracts, this is just a test example. These things can be hundreds and hundreds of lines long. How do I even find it? Because the one thing we do within our environment is we tell them as they operate here in this space, this is the change you're working on. Once that change is approved, we take that information back out. You no longer need to see that change information if you want the records that exist for the change itself, but you don't want that just clustering up your screen, information that's no longer of value to you. So go ahead, let's feed it back. We take the user's update and say, okay, we'll make changes. Now what? Well, here's the actual change record. This is that other tab. We're going to create this for you, just so you know this is the change that we've applied. Are you content with this? Anything you want to change about it? No, go ahead, just submit it. It creates that record for you. It'll then do the same thing for each of the contract lines. It's going to go through. Here's the first contract line based on the information you provided. We'll now create this for you. Are you content? Any other changes for this? No, just go ahead and submit it. And it'll continue to do that as we go through over and over and over again. At the end, we're going to send you a summary and says, is your change finished? Is there anything else we need to do to this? No, let's go ahead. Here's your full summary update. Go ahead and submit it for approval. These are all things users ask for. 4 extra steps. As a designer, we thought, why? It's not necessary. I know it works, but the users say, hey, I just want confirmation. I want to feel good. Taking that feedback, they really understood exactly what this was doing at that point, and they were comfortable that it was going to do exactly what they wanted to a point of they asked for it before we were finished. Can we just release it, get it out there? We do so much of this, please, let's just get this out there so we can now start to take advantage, reduce the effort, because 20 or 30 minutes of doing this 100 plus times a month, I've got better things to do. So what did we learn? How did we get out of this? What does this really do for us? One of the things we've discovered is, making sure we've got really the important factors. What matters? What's going to make this successful? How is this going to work? How do we make sure that users are going to take advantages? Sorry, I have to swallow the mic. It's not. Fortunately, I got somebody at the back keeps telling me, but I need to get this closer to my face. Uh, what do we think? How do we know this is going to work, right? One of the key lessons we learned as we went through this is we wanted to go big, make this work. Here's the things from an operational standpoint we think are really going to change this organization. One of the things users told us, go small. Take the opposite approach. It seems like a little thing to us as we go through testing these types of scenarios, as we build this customization out. We run through these in 1 or 2 minutes. It's not a big deal. 100 minutes a month, I'm not worried about it. They tell me that's not. Small is good, right? Small changes over time, people realize that this is going to provide them some key valuable time back within their space, where they can then go on and work on the things that really do earn us those bucks at the end of the day. Data readiness. In fact, we were talking about this earlier this morning. Make sure that data is ready. We had a lot of cleanup to do in our environment. It worked within our manual space. It doesn't work within the confines of these agents. Make sure that data is ready. If it's not ready, spend your time. It's worth the effort. It will reduce the friction. People will be able to manage this moving forward. Right. Change management itself. As I mentioned earlier, change management is key to getting this out. How do we make sure that these users are ready for it? I did not anticipate users asking me for it before we were done, but how do we make sure that they're ready to receive? Right. And then the partnership. The partnership has been such a key driver for us. We could have delivered something similar, probably not as well defined, definitely not as fast. We wouldn't have even looked at it. We would have spent 4 months, 5 months, 6 months developing this. Having the right partner said, you know what, we can do this in weeks. We don't need to spend months. Let's get this small change, as we like to say, get it out there, make it impactful, make it right. Let's get on to what people really want. And then it helped us figure out what the expansion of this looks like, right? We have a backlog that everyone does that's going to last from now until the end of time. Our backlogs never get smaller, they only get bigger. So how do we make sure that we're ready to move this forward, right? It has to be scalable. How can we tag more on top? How do we make sure that information is available to us and that we can then make this scalable? How do we make it bigger? How do we make it more useful to our environment? And as people start to really start using this stuff, answer the question of what's next. Not just what can we do, but how can we make it work? How can we do something else that we didn't want to, that we now realize is going to drive more benefit to our organization? So that's kind of the case we went through. Hopefully it provides some insights for some of you on how you can make similar changes within your team.
First of all, Kris, thank you so much for your honest and also insightful keynote. We are running out of time a little bit, so if there are some quick question, we can take that, and otherwise I would like to postpone it when we have our networking break. Please, what is your question?
So it is a comment and followed by a question, something that you didn't mention as lesson learned. I noticed you saying all the time that the users, they wanted to have control. Even though Copilot, your agent, is giving you the suggestions and is executing for them, they wanted to see what was happening. So you have to add some extra steps for them to be able to confirm that step. That is a lesson learned for me, right? And usually what we get, like a lot of people say, well, how is the agent doing all this stuff for me? How do I make sure that it's correct? How do I make sure that agent is smart enough to monitor all of that? Now I'm going to swallow this microphone. So the way that you went about giving them the security that the agent was creating the right data, was executing with the right information, is you created some extra steps that you didn't think of first, right? You wanted to go just fully do everything. And they, I feel, were the ones telling you, wait, let us confirm the data. Show me what you came up with before I confirm. You didn't put it as a lesson learned. It is a lesson learned for me, right? And it's like at this mid-step, like, okay, before I fully trust the agent, let's make sure that the agent has the right data. You did go back to the points like you need to make sure that the data is correct. and that's probably how you get your satisfaction. So that's my comment. My question to you: do you think that is a lesson learned, something that you would recommend? Did that help you make the adoption faster or not?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's a very good question. It did. It made a huge difference to us. Like I say, they see a summary of what that looks like at the end. They don't actually see the detail of that. We don't show them the individual lines or what that change looks like. But it was a key lesson learned for us, right? How do we make sure that we're driving this? How do we make sure they feel comfortable with it? Because comfort from a user base is everything. I want to know that this is doing what I need it to do. I don't care about how it's doing it. Just tell me you know what I want. And if I see that you know what I want, then I want to use this more. I want to make this effective. I want to take the rest of the effort that I have to focus on and skip it. I don't have to do this now. As long as I'm comfortable, because it's one of the early agents for us, we thought, you know what, that advice makes sense to us. Let's give you that feedback. As long as you see really what that result will look like, then they're comfortable enough to say, I can trust this to do what I need it to do. They don't know if it's creating 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, and they don't care. It's not important to them. They just want to know that when I finish and when I say submit this, that the right information goes to the right person and those changes get approved without me having to come back.